As you command.
Did your parents drop you on your head? Repeatedly?
Sorry, can't. Await my signal.
Let's try that again. No.
Will do.
That's a negative. Salutations, Fatebinder. Or should I now call you Lord of Vendrian's Well? The Spire King? Prince of the suggestive vertical slab. That is how I met you, so that's how it's gonna stick in my mind. So if I might ask, what is your plan now? The edict no longer looms overhead, and Kairos' conquest of the Tears seems to be slipping. What with the armies and civil war. My first suggestion would be to build a boat. Something durable, and take our chances on the high seas far from Kairos. I have a second and more practical suggestion. Look to the horizon and slightly up. By that I mean the other spires. We should see what's atop the others. Otherwise someone else might look first. Not nearly enough, apparently. To me, they've always been axioms of navigation. You can triangulate a lot of things with the sextant and a clear view to a spire or two. We've long known the spires radiate strong magical fields, and all save the mountain spire connect to the old walls. So it's the sort of thing common folk know from afar, but avoid day to day. I would counsel you to do just that. I'm sure the events of Vendrian's Well are best explained from your mouth to Tunon's ears. Furthermore, I'd guess the Archon of Justice would want to know your take on the Archons and their divide. Well, short of Tunon giving you orders on pain of death, you have the luxury of acting on your own volition. Though the disfavored are likely to come for you. Whatever you decide, I'm at your disposal. And I am thankful to not be a bloody pile of offal in Vendrian's Well. Life under your banner will, I'm sure, prove most interesting.
At least in theory, I'm supposed to be observing history and not getting myself wrapped into it. All the same, this is the thrill of a lifetime. Rarely does one stand so close to monumental moments in the making. For the moment, the Scarlet Chorus could be considered an ally. Let us hope the Archon of Secrets continues to find you entertaining enough to remain friends. The disfavored, on the other hand, will be a certain threat. The Civil War has removed Ash's pretense to play well with others. So, I must ask, are you planning on taking sides in the Civil War? Or do you have other plans? Your plans are your own, until they plunge the rest of us into misfortune. But I shall not pry, not now, at least. Know that your actions at Vendrian's Well have earned you the attention of the Tears. Your reputation will attract opportunity and disaster, likely in uneven measures. Whatever you do next, consider that many eyes will be upon you, for you have both delivered and taken away the Overlord's edicts, and few will know how to make sense of the latter. You are an exception the Archons cannot afford to ignore. They will likely aim to control or destroy you. Most of Kairos's edicts were either worded to end in a manner of the Overlord's choosing, or the edicts have simply continued in perpetuity. That's not to say there haven't been stories of broken edicts. They're just uncommon. The oldest is, I think, Goldbraith and the Edict of Sorrows, and that tale dates back to around the year 110. Aside from you, the most recent was the Edict of Twisting Grasses, back in 380. In all these stories, Kairos's edict very clearly gives its victim a single way to escape, and someone manages it. What's never happened is the pure abatement of an edict, like using a spell of warding or cancellation. Of course. How can I help? The spires predate us all. As far as I know, we're the only ones who've been up here since... ever? I think this might be a first. Perhaps the real Trailblazer had trouble getting down and was lost to history. Of course. How can I help? Are you asking for an objective assessment? Or is this your way of saying you want to gossip? Good tidecasters stay underwater. Kairos did the Tiers a favor by erasing those moon howlers from history. A shame one of them escaped justice.
I like that I make you this agitated. Considering all the things that don't seem to bother you in the slightest. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of getting off on how much power you're giving me here.
Ugh. And then there's your coquettish act whenever someone calls you on your teeth. I'll be the one ready to tangle when, not if, you decide to pounce. I know little of swordplay, and couldn't work a curve and arrow to save my life. I can't really comment on the lady.
Lady, you're just afraid to talk in front of me, clear as day. Your sweat is easier to read than your ink scribbles.
No, not at all. I just don't know how to comment on a warrior's worth, that's all.
Spare me your blather. Think that, do you? Didn't know you had such swollen hope for me.
A most fascinating specimen. I think she has great potential. A dangerous amount of potential, to be blunt. The Scarlet Furies are the fighting elite of the Scarlet Chorus, and that means floating to the top of a sea of blood and chop. We should consider ourselves lucky to have her on our side, with her weapons usually pointed away from us. I am nothing if not a semi-reliable font of knowledge. What did you want to discuss? You mean what's left of them? What would you like to know? Traditionally, we use magic only so that we may observe and archive. So that means magic of concealment and protection. But, in truth, we have amassed a great wealth of knowledge. Before the Vellum Citadel fell, any given subject of magic had at least one sage practicing it.
So you're admitting you had at least one agent of yours studying the magic of the Tidecasters?
Well, I mean, if such information had fallen into our hands generations ago, we'd be fools not to...
Not to suckle off that ill-gotten teat of knowledge? Filthy word whores of the worst degree. The Edict of Fire wasn't half of what you deserved.
Well, it's not like I personally stole from your school, and nor did I get to study the Tidecaster scrolls. Not for lack of trying, I'll admit.
Just stop. The less you talk, the less you'll suffer when I finally kill you.
The sages are archivists, academicians, and arcanists. Our mission is to preserve the knowledge of today for the good of tomorrow. Though we are known for our magic, few realize that most sages concern themselves with scribal work. Only a select few have the talent or focus to work the sigils. Each sage benefited from the scrolls of learning that came before him, and so each sage must repay this boon by gathering, authoring, or translating new texts to the stacks. But all that's a bit generous. It's no secret that the sages were far more happy to add knowledge than to share it. Why, indeed. As historians, it is our place to document, not direct. Let others rage and resist. Ours is the duty to record. The decision to defy Kairos was not unanimous, nor the laws of Kairos would forbid much of the knowledge contained in the Vellum Citadel. The elder sages feared, rightly perhaps, that the Overlord would put an end to our tradition of stockpiling knowledge. The Battle of the Vellum Citadel was a battle to preserve knowledge, but our actions will be remembered as treason against the will of Kairos. The sages trace their days to a generation after 5 Wives, when the first settlers moved west. The Vellum Citadel began as a scholastic retreat, slowly blossoming into the finest library in the continent across the generations. The centuries fly by, and suddenly, the Vellum Citadel is the definitive archive in the Tiers. The sages branched out into carrying missives for wealthy clients, training noble children to read. The peasants may have feared us, but we remained useful enough to the kings and queens of the Tiers to avoid war. When Kairos came to the Tiers, that's when our hubris came back to haunt us. The elder sages, the other elder sages, not I, believed our spellcraft was enough to ward off any siege. Well, we know how that turned out.
So, the Scarlet Chorus and Disfavored are at each other's throats. Can't say I didn't see that coming, but the Archons might have waited until one war was over before they started another. Fighting with the Scarlet Chorus? Oh, never doubt yourself for backing the winning team. The Chorus has the best chance of succeeding in the Tiers. For all their skill, the Disfavored are too stubborn by far. Who can say? War is all about compromising your morals, deciding who lives and dies. What seems like a mistake turns into your greatest call down the road. I'll say this much, our time together is anything but dull. My blades are yours for as long as you'll have me. What do you need?